Welcome to Internally Guided Life, a podcast to help you unlock a life of balance, fulfillment, and joy. I'm Kayla Sweet, and together we're going to have fun and create change from the inside out. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome back, my friends. We are here again on Internally Guided Life to have an amazing conversation, as we always do. I am feeling really curious about where today is going to go. I'm feeling excited. I'm feeling really open and kind of calm and grounded this morning. So I just really can't wait to share the guests that we have with you today. This is going to be such a transformative experience to be able to just listen and hear her insights on life. So today we are going to be talking about everything from self-love to embracing uniqueness to the deep and sometimes paralyzing grief that can accompany us as we're on a growth path, as we're on a healing path, the grief that people don't always talk about. All of these topics are things that are really close to my heart and have been so much a part of my own journey, my own path to healing and to being able to show up in the world from a place of purpose and passion and all of the things that we're passionate about as a community together. So I know that this conversation is going to resonate with you. And to guide us on this exploration, we have an amazing guest. We have Michele Johnston with us today. Michele was raised with a strict religious ideology around what women should be. And she was somebody that was very devoted to raising her children, and through that, really lost herself to motherhood. Well, she was faced with the decision to either remain content with that complacency or to embark on a journey of rediscovery. And because she's here with us today, I think you know which path she chose. She talks about breaking free from societal expectations. She talks about embracing imperfections. And she is all about moving towards a life of self-love and authenticity. Yes, all of the things that we want. I am so excited to introduce Michele. Michele, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here. Is there anything you want to start off telling the listeners as far as who you are and what you do outside of the bio?
Wow, that was an amazing introduction. Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here to share, inspire, and empower and elevate your audience today. It's truly an honor to be here. Um, wow, outside of that intro, um, I live in California well, I have two young adult children that are all over the country, but I still have two children at home. I'm married to a wonderful, supportive husband and really living a life that is so aligned and really leading a life that is led by my intuition and just really embracing the journey, all of its ups and downs. And as we know, life is not all rainbows and butterflies. And that's part of what we're going to talk about today, too. You know, there's so much that goes into rediscovery and that midlife awakening. And, we get so excited and wrapped up with the newness of it all. But there's always resistance when there's a growth happening. Um, So, aside from all that you shared, I am a motivational speaker, speaking specifically on these topics. I also am an empowerment coach, working with women who are embarking on this rediscovery journey towards their midlife awakening, supporting women as they really strip down to the basics and dive deep into who they authentically are. Um, Getting curious about life, trying new things, and really finding what lights their soul on fire. Um, so that is a gist of what I'm doing over here on my end.
Yes, such important work that the world needs. Women are not provided these roadmaps, these scripts, these supports for
Mhm,
self-exploration and re recreating our identities and self-authoring the lives that we were meant to live, that we want to live, activating our desires. Like these aren't things that we are told how to do in school or in
mhm.
society at large. So this work that you're doing is truly transformative, not just for the women you're working with, but everybody in their circle of impact in the greater communities that they're in. So I'm so honored to have you here and so excited to dig a little deeper into all of these things that you've encountered on your own journey and the way that you celebrate and support women on theirs. This is just what the show is about. So it's making my heart very happy to have you here. I would love, before we dig into some of the nuances, to just give you an opportunity to tell your story, the brief or long version. I guess that's up to you.
Mhm.
What's your life story? What brought you here? How did you come to this work?
Well, as you shared, I grew up in a real strict religious ideology of what the perfect woman, wife, and mother should be. And I was taught these things from a very young age and grew into them as a teenager. And quite honestly, I felt like my sole purpose in life was to be a wife and mother. Um, I had some other little aspirations, but really that was I had a crazy desire to be a mother. I'm the oldest of five children, so that maternal nurturing instinct came quite easily for me as I helped with the younger kids in my family. And so I knew without a shadow of a doubt I wanted to be a mother. And so I went through my teenage years feeling like, okay, here we go. I'm going to, kind of live my best life a little bit, so within the, you know, re- boundaries that were in place by my religion. Um, and then I hit the age of 17 and I actually went through like my first heartache, my first gnarly breakup,
Mm,
and really felt like I needed some help of a professional. And so I ended up in a few sessions with my psychologist, and all of a sudden, I was able to see beyond the confinements of this box that I had been placed in, or that I had placed myself in.
mm,
And I started kind of like pushing the boundaries, and kind of was my first real rediscovery or discovery of myself, I should say. So from the ages of about 17 to 21, I was living my best life. I, left the church that I had been raised in, became inactive, and just was doing whatever my heart desired. And in hindsight, I see now that that was the first time that I was actually tapping into my authentic self, who I
mm,
was. Um, However, when I turned 21, that nagging voice in the back of my head started creeping in, saying, "Hey, Michelle, you know, time to reel it in. You've had your fun. You need to start focusing on finding that young man to marry. You need to start focusing on raising a family, falling back into this, you know, limiting belief that I had been raised with." And so I did just that. I started reeling it in, stopped partying, started getting serious about finding a partner. And I did. I found a nice introverted, conservative young man. And I was like, perfect. He's going to bring the perfect balance to this crazy redhead energy that I had going on. And I was married and had the first of my four children at 23, and life was freaking complete.
Mm,
I was a wife, I was a mom, it was everything. I just dove headfirst into it. And, 2 years later, I had kiddo number two, and then number three, and then number four. And then I was neck deep in the chaos of being a mom, kids, activities, school, volunteering, everything. And, I was very much in survival mode. However, I portrayed to the outside world that everything was perfect. I had
mm,
everything under control. Everything was perfect in the home. My kids were always put together. I always had a happy face. Um, but inside the home, it was a real struggle for me. And I was very self-critical of myself because I wasn't able to reach these expectations that I had placed on myself as a result of my upbringing and the teaching and the guidance that I had been given. I was supposed to be this certain way, and I kept falling short. And so the self criticism became depression, became meltdowns, and then there's something wrong with me. I'm crazy. I have like everything I ever wanted, and I'm so unhappy. And I'd go to therapy and feel better. And then the cycle would start all over again. And, ultimately, I was trying to be Martha Stewart on steroids, and it just was not working out for me. But I kept in this cycle. And when my youngest kid went off to preschool, that was really the first pivotal moment where I was like, something's got to change. He went off to school, and as many of us moms know, like that is quite the occasion when all of a sudden all of your kids are in school and you have suddenly all this free time on your hands. And what are you going to do? It's a huge milestone in motherhood. So he went off to school, and I got caught up on the home and everything. And then I found myself kind of pacing around the house. I found myself in the silence of my home, not knowing what to do. What do I do? This is supposed to be such an exciting time for me, but I had my oh shit moment because I was like, what do I even like? I don't have any hobbies. What makes me happy? I don't even know, because my whole life had revolved around my children and my family and being a homemaker. I had completely lost sight of who I was as an individual, and no longer had the interests that I once had. Even if I could fall back on that, it was like, 10 years prior to. Um, so that was really like my first kind of eye-opening experience, and realizing, okay, what am I going to do? And I really had to strip down like everything, like, okay, this is what I do in the house. Let's kind of break it down. And what is the very basic necessity that I need? Well, because I hadn't been caring for myself, I was pre-diabetic, and I had chronic hypertension and was on blood pressure medication. And
Mm,
I thought, okay, well, the very first thing I could do is start taking care of myself for
mm,
the first time in like 15 years. Start taking care of myself. So that was the very first step for me in my rediscovery journey, because as I kind of came into taking care of myself, I realized the self-love piece was missing. So the self-care piece was missing, the self-love piece was missing. I had been so critical of myself. Um, did I even really love myself? I kind of
mm,
despised myself. by this point. So there was a lot of retraining that I had to do as far as mindset goes. Another big pivotal moment around the same time had been a Mother's Day. And, you know, I'm sharing this piece more and more often because um, really feel that it's one of those things that women don't talk about. And that is that out of all the holidays in the year, Mother's Day was my most despised. I flat out hated Mother's Day.
Mm.
And the reason being is for me, not only was Mother's Day just another day on the calendar, like nothing special was done. Like I still had to be a referee and I still had to help around the house, and all the things. But as a result of my upbringing and these expectations that I had, Mother's Day really highlighted my imperfections to me,
Mm.
really um, made me see how much I was falling short of these expectations. And quite honestly, it got to a point where I felt completely unworthy to even be a mother to my children and started thinking they would be better off without me. And so this one in particular Mother's Day, I was sitting in the pew at church listening to all these people, you know, give, so many like accolades to their mothers and how wonderful and amazing they are. And I was sitting in the pew sobbing as all these thoughts were going through my head. Am I even worthy to be a mother to my children? And that was a second pivotal moment for me where I was sitting in there and I thought to myself, There's got to be a better way. Something has to change. I should not feel like shit on Mother's Day."
Mm.
And that moment is what propelled me into this process of releasing and the grieving and whatnot that we're going to be talking about.
Wow. I'm just so inspired by your story, and we've talked before, so I had some context, but I think the detail in which you just went into highlights so many archetypal stories that so many of us are living, right? Especially the disconnect you explained between the way that you were showing yourself to the world, the way you were showing your family to the world, and the way it actually felt, and how isolating that is when
Mhm,
the way we're trying to get people to see us or perceive us is different from how we
mhm,
actually feel like we're living, that pain and loneliness that comes with that. And I think so many people are there, but we don't talk about it enough. We don't share it with each other. We've learned to put on these facades that we show the world, and then meanwhile struggle, quietly with our challenges and our sense of worth and our identity and all of
mhm,
that. And then this other piece, which is something that I can't speak to personally because I'm not a mother, but the mothers that I've worked with, that identity shift that happens when the youngest goes off to school, when you are
mhm,
confronted with yourself and you have the space and you have to figure out who you are again.
mhm,
Because, yeah, as you said, there's all of these gaps that hadn't been able to be realized. And your vulnerability and honesty around the way you felt on Mother's Day, I think highlights too just this immense pressure we put on women and on mothers to
yeah,
be perfect and serve everyone in the perfect way all of the time. So I just want to say thank you for sharing all of that. I know it's going to resonate with our listeners because we're all on this journey. Maybe we're on a different stage of it. Maybe we're still grappling with pieces of it. But whether people are mothers or not, I think these are common themes that happen in a woman's life journey. And I
mhm,
just know it's going to resonate. So thank you for sharing that. I know that when we had talked before, something that really called to me was your experience with grief. So you had these moments, these key pivotal moments where you're like, okay, something's got to shift. I can't go on this way. This isn't sustainable. And you started to change and grow and rediscover. But like you said, it wasn't all rainbows and butterflies. Can
Yeah.
you tell us a little bit about what that looked like? What were some of the complexities and some of the grief that came along as you navigated this?
hmm Yeah, so I'm gonna run with from that moment on Mother's Day where I had that realization that I deserve to be happy and I shouldn't be feeling like shit on Mother's Day, that I was good enough. Because I came out of that, I had my sadness release, and then it turned into being really pissed off, and I was pissed off because in some ways, how I was raised, but more so that I had been led to believe that I had to be a certain way. And I was really upset that I had spent over half of my life trying to be someone that I wasn't. And I was really pissed off that I had gotten so far out there that I was in a place of actually believing that my kids would be better off without me.
Mm,
And it just infuriated me. And, I had to work through that anger. And once I was able to kind of work through that, I realized, okay, this anger is no longer serving me. Like, I got it out. Like, yes, I'm pissed off because I spent so much of my life trying to be someone that I wasn't. I released it, and then I was like, okay, now I need to, with that release, it needs to come forgiveness. And, I didn't feel much of a sense of needing to forgive like my parents or my mentors growing up, but more of a need to forgive Michelle,
mm,
forgive myself for just doing the best with what I had, what I knew. Was just doing what I could with the information and the knowledge that I had. And so I had to find this place of forgiveness because she didn't know. She didn't know there was a better way. She didn't know how to tap into her true self. She didn't know it was okay to embrace her authenticity. She didn't know it was okay to not be perfect.
mm,
And so I had to kind of embrace old Michelle and forgive her. And then I was able to move forward, um, knowing that I was entering a place of rediscovery and knowing that a lot of it was going to be trial and error. And so I had to move forward with quite a bit of grace for myself,
mm.
um, giving myself that safe place to kind of to rediscover. After all, I was kind of like a toddler in an adult body, kind of getting to know the world for the first time. And and so that coincides with this when my kiddo went off to preschool and like, okay, what am I going to do now? So the two kind of like, pivots kind of collided. And here we are, like, what do I do now? I'm going to take back my health. I'm going to start exercising, drop the kids off, go for a walk or do yoga, but I can find that time in my day now to just give myself at least a half hour of movement and try to be more mindful with my nutrition. And then I was like, okay, now I need to find some hobbies. Okay, what am I going to do? Well, I was always taking my family's pictures for like the holidays and portraits. And I had the fancy camera. Didn't really know how to use it, but I had the fancy camera. I was like, hey, it would be kind of cool to do a photography class. So I looked at my local resources, found that there was an adult education class in photography. And so I took this photography class. And then I was like, you know what? I always wanted to learn about stocks and trading. I wonder if there's a class on that. Sure enough, there was. So I took this other class, small investment, small, time commitment. It was in the evening. So my husband was home, could stay with the kids, once a week. So I started kind of diving into what was I already doing in my daily life? What was already part of my routine that that I could kind of grow on? What did I enjoy? And that's really like the thing, like where when women are like, well, where do I don't even know where to start. Well, what are you already doing in the home that you enjoy? Do you
Mm.
love it, like singing to your children at night? Do you love the bedtime stories? Are you always humming a tune? Well, I mean, maybe join a weekly vocal group that just gets together and sings. Maybe take a creative writing class and explore that creative outlet. So just stripping down and looking at what you're already doing in the home is a really great place to start. So I was in this rediscovery. I was getting curious about life. I was getting really excited about the opportunities that were out there. Um, I'd like to have my clients make a wouldn't it be cool if list. Wouldn't
Mm.
it be cool if I learned how to do that? That I saw a person do that once on TV. Wouldn't it be cool if I did that too? And so it kind of like starts creating like, okay, like the galaxy is the limit, right? Like you can
Yes.
really do anything your little heart desires if you're curious and excited about it, freaking do it. Um, so I started doing all these things, and what I had, been a homemaker, been pretty, family focused and isolated, and all of a sudden I was kind of out of in the world, and I was discovering myself, and it was so exciting for me. I ended up falling in love with going to the gym and lifting weights, and I found it to really be my happy place, the gym. It was a place where I could process, stuff from the day or any stress of the world. Like lifting heavy for me was a real big, like stress release, and listening to music is so therapeutic for me. So, like my playlist is freaking crazy. I'm like Beethoven to Metallica and everything in between, depending on what I needed to process, right? The
Yes.
and then endorphins. Oh my gosh. I was like, all I need is 20 minutes and I've got my endorphin fix and I'm feeling so much better and just like my mindset changes. And I loved going to the gym. And my family knew that, I'd be like, I'm off to the gym. Okay, hour, mom's doing her time. And my family was okay with that. And that's another whole piece to this when you're discovering yourself and kind of going outside of the home for the first time. It's new to your family as well. Like they've never
Yes.
seen this side of mom before. Or what do you mean she's going to a pottery class? Like, what do you mean? Because they're used to having you around 24/7 at their beck and call. So, but as I gradually grew into my new interests, they adjusted as well. So being in the gym and falling in love with taking care of myself in this way, I found it extremely empowering to be taking care of myself in such a way and seeing the changes in my body, but also seeing the changes in, my mindset and my outlook on life. And it was so empowering in a way that I really, truly, for the first time in my life, actually was falling in love with myself
Mm.
and could truly say, I love myself. And it was a real exciting time for me. Um, and so I got to this point where I was like, okay, let's push the boundaries a little bit more. Wouldn't it be cool if I did a fitness competition? Like that would be wild because I am like the most modest human being, and of course, with my religious upbringing. But can you imagine if I was walking across the stage in a bling bikini and hooker heels? Wow, that would be something else. And so I set that goal for myself. and and I call it my sister wife to hot wife phase because I went from like, yeah, like, well, you can imagine sister wife, wife. And I did it and I made it up on that stage. And It wasn't something that I broadcasted to the world. In fact, only my husband knew that I had set the goal for myself because I really wanted this goal to be for me. I wanted to be doing it for myself and not for anyone else. And it was quite a lofty goal. I needed to lose 25 pounds to like really make it happen, to be stage ready. And I wanted to be highly focused and I didn't want to feel the pressure of everyone else. You know, that said, as well, like my whole social circle leading up to this had been my church circle.
Mm,
So I lost a lot of friends already along the way because they didn't understand why I was looking outside of the home for, happiness. Why was I, doing the things that I was doing? And I wasn't necessarily looking outside of the home for happiness, but I was looking for fulfillment. I was looking for purpose and, you know, looking for what made me as an individual happy. Um, and they didn't understand that. So I, had a lot of criticism happening already. So I thought, okay, this is just, I'm keeping it secret. Only my husband knows I was doing it out of state. So I did this competition and flying home, I post on social media. So this happened this weekend. And all of a sudden, my DMs were like off the hook. And, I had some friends reaching out, such an inspiration. How did you do this? I mean, I had like different like sporting companies wanting me to become an ambassador, like all these things. And it was really exciting. And this was also the first time I was like, holy cow, I really enjoy inspiring women and want to help them create their best self, the best version of themselves too. So I felt that passion to help women start to ignite at this time as well. I came home and the next morning got the kiddos off to school, and my husband comes to me and he says, Michelle, we need to talk. And I'm like, okay, cool, let's talk. And he's like, I'm super proud of you. Like, you did this, you set your mind to it, you did this, and you look freaking amazing. And I'm so proud of you. But I need to know, with all this attention you're getting now, where do I stand as your husband? And I'm
mm.
like, what are you talking about? I'm like, Everything's the same. Like, I have the same commitment to our marriage and to you, and everything's the same on the inside. It's just, the outside changed." And, we had conversation around this and ended up going into some therapy because, um, as a result of this new Michelle emerging, this discovery of who I was authentically, um, a lot of his personal insecurities started coming up.
Mm,
And what had been a very perfectly fine, happy marriage went from insecurities to controlling behaviors to psychological abuse. And, we worked through it for about 5 years before I was faced with this decision of the only way this marriage can work is if I go back to who I was before I started becoming who I am now,
mm,
or do I pick myself and truly make my happiness a non-negotiable and pick my happiness and pick me moving forward. And I chose myself and I chose my happiness. And, this what had been such a wonderful and exciting time for me had turned so dark and
mm,
so difficult. And I truly had to keep an eye on this non negotiable that I deserve to be happy, that the universe had my back. that everything was going to be okay. And I had done so much self-development work in this process of discovering myself that I now knew that I was deserving of happiness. I knew that I was worthy of happiness. And I knew that I was strong enough to make it through. I knew that I would be resilient enough to make it through. In fact, I have a shirt that says resilient as fuck or AF.
I love that.
It was like my thing. So entering into the divorce and the falling, the failure of my marriage, like there was a lot. This is where the grieving came in. Grieving it was so exciting to discover who I was, along the way. But for the first time, I had to grieve the loss of my previous life,
Mm,
of who I had been. I had to grieve the loss of a relationship that I had built. We had been married for 18 years at this point. It was extremely painful. And so many times I wondered if it was really worth it because it would have been so much easier to just fall back to
mm,
where things had been comfortable and easy, especially, with the children and watching them go through, the arguments and the anger and the tension in the home and the divorce and separating of the homes and all that they went through. Um, I many, many times I felt incredibly selfish and I had to talk myself down and be like, no, like you have to do this for yourself. You have to do this for your children
mm,
because I had been, I didn't realize at the time, but by changing this course of my life, what um a crazy awesome example I was setting for them at the same time. So, yeah, not all rainbows and butterflies, this rediscovery journey. You will get to a point where you do have to grieve a loss of your previous self. And it may come with friends that you thought would be in your life for life saying that they weren't interested or stop calling you or stop, inviting you out to the things and being okay to let people go
mm.
because there is a good chance that they will circle back around into your life when the time is right again. But yeah, this journey is definitely not for the faint of heart, and there will be grieving a loss of a previous self for sure.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I got like full body goosebumps when you got to the point in your story where you had to choose you. That I get that resonated into my soul because I think at some point, whether it's, everyone's journey looks different. So there's all these different, pivotal points that we face where we have to make this choice. And it's actually incredibly hard to choose ourselves in these moments, right? Like you said, it's so easy to just fall back into the routine, to the patterning, to the way things used to be, rather than to embrace the unknown and what could be. And I don't think enough people talk about this in the personal
Mm.
growth and healing circles is that one, loving yourself is hard as hell. Like
Yeah.
there's some really tough decisions you have to make in the name of self-love, and it's not all easy and it's not all pretty. And the stuff that you see advertised on social media, all of these people living their best awakened lives, like it comes with some real growing pains. It comes with some real grief, and saying goodbye to that, it's such a challenge, but you did it. You put yourself first. You centered yourself for a moment, and recognizing that by doing that, you're inspiring other people, you're inspiring your
Mhm.
children. It's never selfish to center ourselves in our decisions, but we're sent very mixed messages about this as women
Yeah.
in
Yes.
society. So it creates all this inner conflict and that feeling of selfishness. So, wow, what a journey you've been on. What a beautiful and complicated process that we're all on, right? As we make these tough decisions to grow. And just what a beautiful example of where you can be after you move through that grief and choose yourself. It's so inspiring. I would love to hear a little bit about as you kind of moved through the grief, you had this darkness, the reality of what you had to let go come up. And as we all do, there's some challenging things that arise during that. But then through it, I know from the time that we've, connected before that you've got a really unique look on celebrating yourself in all of your uniqueness and loving and embracing yourself as somebody that is standing out from the crowd. How did that evolve from all of this? And how do you do that every day, embrace that uniqueness of you?
Yeah, boy. Well, I will preface this by saying I definitely have my imposter syndrome from time to time. It's not easy being authentic all of the time, for sure. But really, this came from when I started my journey and realized when I realized that I really didn't have much love or really any care for myself. Um, I I started looking for resources, what was out there that could help me improve my relationship with myself, realizing that that was really a key piece to, having this foundation that I wanted so desperately for my life and my purpose. And I knew I needed it in order to be happy and to feel fulfilled. Um, one of my very, very first books that I started reading was The Universe Has Your Back by
Mm,
Gabrielle Bernstein.
yes.
And podcasts were not the thing at the time, it was YouTube. And so I started looking for different like YouTube shows that had this foundation of self-care, self-love, and empowerment. And so I really started bringing these pieces into my life and listening and looking for different practices that I could start implementing into my life. And for me, affirmations were really big and really became my safety net. To be honest, they were like my flotation device, especially when things got bad. I would go through affirmations. I had my daily affirmations. I had them up on my mirror. I had them like everywhere. In fact, one of my favorite things to do was I would create wallpapers for my phone. And every time I was stopped at a stoplight or checking notifications, I would, tap my phone, take a deep breath and release any negativity or stress I was carrying and say my affirmation a few
Mm,
times, two, three times, take another deep cleansing positive breath and release it. And by then it would be green light and I'd be like good to go. So it's constantly looking for ways to bring positivity into my life. And as I brought in this positivity, I began to protect it, um, really holding it close. And, now I'm like, I feel like I can sense negative energy like a mile away and I like run away from it like it's the plague, but I work so hard to create such a positive energy, a positive space within myself. I created that safe space to go through forgiving pieces of me, embracing and healing pieces, my inner child and working through blocks there and replacing old negative limiting stories and thoughts with positive, empowering, self-love, uh, s- uh, affirmations and stories moving forward. And um, because I have done that work, it, really helped me to release this idea that I had to be perfect,
mm,
that perfection was, the end all. And realize like, hey, it's okay to not be perfect. And in fact, it's pretty fucking awesome to be imperfect because
Yes.
all of my all of these imperfections that we have, all these little quirks and, oddities, whatever makes us not like everyone else are the freaking unique qualities that make us exactly who we were created and designed to be.
Yes.
And as soon as I realized that and embraced it and stepped into it and that power that it brought, like, talk about empowering to be like, I'm fucking badass exactly the way that I am. And realizing that the people who were on my vibration, the people who could um, embrace and love me for who I am, those were the people that I wanted in my life. And so I was like, that helped me to even more step into my authenticity because I wanted people, I didn't want to pretend anymore. I wanted people
Yes.
to be around me and love me and support me and elevate me for who I was. So the more I step into my authenticity, the more I will rephrase, the more you step into your authenticity, the more you will attract your tribe and the people that are on your level. And you will continue to grow. You will continue to elevate your vibration, and people and opportunities will come and go. But as you grow and you elevate, new people, new relationships, new opportunities come into your life to continue to support you on this upward journey to who you are ultimately, who you're meant to be, what your life's purpose is. Um, I don't know if I totally diverged away from the question,
No, you answered it
but
perfectly. I
I,
I
yeah,
think that
go
was
ahead.
a perfect answer. So, I mean, because one, there's a foundation, right, that we need before we
Hmm.
can embrace our uniqueness, before we can step into our authenticity. Because if we don't love ourselves or even like ourselves, it's very hard to do that. So I'm glad that
Yeah.
you kind of brought that in because it takes a lot of bravery to step out and be unique and imperfect and to share that and to be proud of that. And if you haven't done that foundational work, I don't know that we can be super successful in it, right? Like we have to
Hmm.
heal it and feel it and
Yeah.
love it ourselves before we can,
Yeah.
really show up in social spaces and be okay with the rejection that comes from that. Because like you
Yeah.
said, like your tribe is going to be attracted to you as you are. And that also means you're going to repel other people. And so if you have some of those like
Hmm.
people pleasing tendencies, or you really want to make everyone happy or everyone has to like you, it's going to
Hmm.
feel incredibly uncomfortable. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think you hit on that perfectly. So you talked about some of the practices that you utilized as you went through this, like building a foundation of self-love
Hmm.
and the affirmations and surrounding yourself with this knowledge through the YouTube videos and reading books and all of these practices. When you're working with people, is there like a first step that you would
Hmm.
recommend as people are on this journey? Like where is the entryway, especially for, I know you work with women who are navigating this midlife reawakening, rediscovery shift. What are some of the things that are useful for the people who are listening, who are like resonating with this and they want to start to do some work for themselves?
Hmm. I feel as, you know, a general whole, women tend to be like, okay, yes, I want this in my life. Yes, I want to make changes. And we set these really, I'm going to call them big goals for ourselves. But, we set these goals like, okay, I'm going to take care of myself. So I'm going to make sure I go for an hour walk every day, or I'm going to start running that mile every morning before the kids get up, or, I'm going to make sure I cut out time to read. That's what I enjoy. Um, Even I remember one of mine was I want to make sure that I get to soak in a nice hot bubble bath and listen to a podcast once a week. And, the fact of the matter is that when you're in the chaos of life, when you're, working 9 to 5, or you got kids to come home to, or you're a homemaker, or, all the things, when you're in the chaos of life, like these goals are super awesome and great, but they're really difficult to maintain when you don't really have that solid like foundation of really self-care and self-love already in place. We kind of go like 0 to 100 in that
Yeah.
aspect. So what I, in fact, was just reminding myself of I need to start doing this for myself because it's been a little crazy in my life the other day, was starting off really, really small, finding what makes you happy? What is something that brings you joy on a very, very basic, small level, and implementing that into your life on a daily basis? And I'm talking about like lighting your favorite scented candle, at the end of the day. So you have your Zen bedroom to go to. I'm talking about turning on your, 90s like R&B music and rocking out while you're doing the dishes or cooking dinner. Um, putting on, spritzing on your special occasion only perfume when you're running to Costco, putting on lip gloss, like very like little itty bitty things. My personal favorite is chocolate. I treat myself with chocolate, and Mama has her own little stash in the freezer. No one touches. And that's my little bit of happiness. It's like if the day is crazy, if nothing else gets done for myself, I'm all focused on everyone else and the kids and the stuff. I know that I'm like, okay, everyone's quiet for like 5 minutes. I'm that chocolate is all mine, So it's finding like the very basic of things that you can start doing on a daily habit. That will bring that little smile to your face, that will kind of bring your mood up, that brings you some happiness and joy into your day. So start off with the very basic small things. And as you start with the small things, they can grow into bigger things. It becomes a habit to have your emotional support chocolate at the end of every day. Like, okay, what next? As you get comfortable within that, that becomes a habit, then you can start adding another thing and another thing. And then it does grow into bigger habits. So these smaller stepping stones, you know, create like these bigger stones in your journey, um, as you start prioritizing yourself and really making your happiness a non-negotiable piece in your daily life as well.
Yeah, I love that you emphasize one that when oftentimes when we're starting these journeys, we set these absolutely ridiculous goals for ourselves and then we beat ourselves up when we don't reach them. Yeah,
Yeah,
like I'm gonna have a 2 hour long pristine morning routine and I'm
yeah,
gonna have this very specific bedtime routine. I'm gonna journal every single day. I think
yeah.
any of us who have tried to do, this work, this healing work, have fallen into these traps, this rigidity that we put on ourselves because we
Yeah.
want to do it all. We want to do it quickly. We want all the growth and all the healing. And then we
Hmm.
can't live up to it. It's ridiculous. And then we feel bad about it. We feel like we
Yeah.
failed or we're not good enough to achieve, the healing that we really want. And so we
Hmm.
just go off track. So and that's just something that's huge for me too. Even just yesterday, I had a day where I spent way too much time indoors. And if I spend too much time indoors, I'm just not a happy camper. I start to feel physically ill. And
Oh.
I was like, oh my gosh, like this is just not good. 5 minutes in the backyard, just walking around my yard, like nothing fancy, didn't have to go anywhere, didn't have
Yep.
to look any kind of way, just actually being out there. Like that's one of the
Hmm.
things I do. It could be anything, it depends on what
Yeah.
fills you back up. So I love that emphasis on those baby steps and that gentleness that we have to approach
Hmm.
ourselves with as we do this work. So, gosh, is there anything else that anywhere we didn't go that you were really hoping to be able to share? We're getting close on our time today. It's flown by. I can't even believe it.
I know.
We've gone so many places. You've shared so much wisdom. I'm so grateful for you and the work that you're doing and the life that you're leading as an example. But I want to open it to just, is there any like final things that you wanted to share? Anything you were hoping we would talk about but didn't get to before we start to wrap up?
Wow. I mean, we covered so much, and yes, I am so my heart is so full. I can't even tell you. Something to keep in mind is that one of the greatest privileges in this life is the opportunity to continuously evolve. And it's truly exciting. And there are bumps in the road, and we have big wins and we have fails, and, so many like difficult times. And it's all part of the process. And, it's always said, you don't realize why you're going through something until you're on the other side. And it may take years until you like look back and realize why you went through what you did. But um, you know, in the end, it's all worth it. It's all worth it if you have a real clarity on your why.
Mm,
Why are you doing this? Why being happy, knowing that I deserve to be happy. That was my why. And I knew if I was happy, if I was living authentically and really stepping in and embracing who I was, that even though it was a real difficult time in my life to go through the breakup of my marriage and releasing of friends, and it was difficult on my children, I knew in the long run it would be worth it. So just know that the growth is hard and
mm,
evolving isn't easy, but it is worth it in the end. And you are definitely not alone in your process and in your journey. There are many, many, many women out there who are on the same journey of discovering and releasing and growing, and you are never alone. And that's really the beauty of platforms like your podcast, that are now out there, that women can find podcasts, find people, other women out there, social media accounts that resonate with them, and know that they never have to be alone. And I mean, I'll definitely be will be sharing like how to get in contact with me and all that stuff. But I'm always saying slide into my freaking DMs. Like,
yes.
don't be afraid to slide into my DMs because I find such joy in supporting and connecting with other women. You don't have to be alone in your journey. That's what, we're there. So many other women are out there to support and share this journey with you.
Wow, what a powerful like concluding message. One, you're never alone, and two, embrace the growth, embrace the evolution, even through the grief. It's worth it. I feel all of that wholeheartedly. And I am going to be posting in the show notes all of the ways people can connect with you. But would you want to share just briefly where can people find you? How do they find you on social media? There are websites, are there resources that you want to talk about briefly before we say goodbye?
Mhm. Best way to connect with me is on Instagram. My handle is Fiercely Authentic Coaching. So you can find me there very easily. And then if you're interested in having me come speak to your group or at an event, my website is www.michellejohnstonspeaks.com.
Perfect. Oh my goodness. I am so honored for your presence today. This was such a beautiful way to spend some time on this lovely Saturday. I'm just so grateful that the universe brought us together to have this conversation and to share this. Thank you so much for coming on. For everyone that's listening, I hope you take this to heart. I hope you find a way to integrate what you've just listened to by picking an action. right now, one thing you can do today. Don't let this be another thing you listened to and didn't act on. Find something right now that you can do to show a little bit of care and a little bit of love to yourself on your journey. And I am wishing you all well. Take care of yourselves out there, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you want more resources on thriving in your life or want details on working with me, check out my website at internallyguidedleadership.com or follow me on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok at Internally Guided Coach. Be gentle with yourselves out there, and I'll talk to you next time.